The Fall of Constantinople, an epic of fire and ash. Human history is an endless tide of rise and fall. They are empires forged in fire and iron, ascending brilliantly like the midday sun, only to fade into the cold ash of time. Yet, rarely has a collapse left such a resonant legacy of tragic grandeur. Rarely has a death shaken the human soul as deeply as that of Constantinople, the heart of the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as Byzantium. Imagine yourself standing atop the legendary Theodosian walls in the spring of 1453. Beneath your feet lie stones that have weathered over a millennium. These very stones have echoed with the clash of steel from Goths, Huns, Persians, Avars, and even wayward crusaders. For 1,123 years, Constantinople stood tall as a beacon of Christian civilization in the heart of the East, the sanctuary of the last remnants of ancient Roman greatness. Its people believed this was the city of God, protected by the very girdle of the Virgin Mary. They believed it was immortal. But nothing is forever under the sun. In that fateful year, the beacon was flickering before the greatest storm in history. April 1453, the Byzantine Empire, which once ruled the entire Mediterranean, was now but a hollow shell of its former self. Its territory had shrunk to merely within the capital's walls and a few scattered islands in the Peloponnese. The treasury was empty. The marble palaces, once gilded in gold where Caesars trod in glory, were now cloaked in the dust of time and poverty. The crown jewels had been sold to pay debts, replaced by cheap-colored glass. The city's population, which touched 500,000 in its golden age, now numbered fewer than 50,000 souls, existing as mere shadows amidst the magnificent ruins of the past, like ghosts in their own home. Inside the city, the atmosphere hung as heavy as lead. Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos, the 88th and final Roman emperor, paced restlessly within the palace of Blachernae. He was a brave, stoic man, yet his eyes were sunken from sleepless nights. He bore upon his shoulders the crushing weight of a millennial legacy. He was no dreamer. He knew well, and his people knew well, the enemy was coming. And this time, they were not coming to plunder and leave. They were coming to stay. Outside the walls, not far to the west, the world was trembling. A young man, merely 21 years of age, Sultan Mehmed II of the Ottoman Empire, had pitched his camp right at the gates of Europe. In the eyes of the aging Byzantine advisors and Western monarchs, Mehmed was just an arrogant, hot-headed child. They mocked his youth, but they were wrong. A deadly mistake. That young man harbored an ambition to devour the sun itself. Since he was a small prince, Mehmed had been obsessed by the prophecy of the Prophet Muhammad. Verily you shall conquer Constantinople. What a wonderful leader will her leader be. And what a wonderful army will that army be. Mehmed did not sleep to dream. He stayed awake to manifest that dream. He had sworn before the tombs of his ancestors, I shall take Constantinople, or the city shall take me. He did not merely wish to be a king of the Turks. He sought to become the heir to Rome, a Caesar of the New World. The disparity in forces was a stark despair, a cruel calculation of fate. Constantine XI had only about 7,000 troops at his disposal. This number was laughable when stretched across 20 kilometers of walls. Of these, Fewer than 5,000 were native Greeks. The rest were mercenaries from Genoa, Venice, and Spain, men fighting for coin or for knightly honor. 7,000 men to defend a legacy of 1,500 years. It meant each soldier stood isolated on long, lonely stretches of the ramparts, facing the vast darkness alone. Conversely, Mehmed II brought with him a human tie. Historians estimate the Ottoman army ranged from 80,000 to over 100,000 elite troops, not counting the thousands of laborers, engineers, and camp followers hoping for loot. Red banners filled the sky, and white tents stretched from shore to shore, encircling the ancient city like a suffocating net of death. But the most terrifying aspect was not the numbers. What made even the most seasoned Byzantine veterans tremble as they looked down from the watchtowers was the disciplined silence of the Ottoman army and the dark bronze monsters being hauled into position. Mehmed had ushered in the age of gunpowder. Giant cannons, weapons never before seen in the history of siege warfare, were pointing their black muzzles at the Theodosian walls. The era of swords and knights was drawing to a close, giving way to fire and thunder. On the night before the battle began, the 5th of April, 1453, Constantinople was submerged in a terrifying silence. No music, no feasting, only the murmuring of prayers echoing from the Hagia Sophia, and the anxious gazes of mothers clutching their children. They understood that when the sun rose, their world would be forever changed. It was the calm before the storm, an aging, exhausted, yet proud empire stood facing a young, vigorous power filled with ambition. One side fought for survival, for faith, and for the memory of their ancestors. The other fought for glory, for ambition, and for a promise to history. The velvet curtain of history was slowly rising. And in this opening act, we witnessed the absolute solitude of Constantine XI. He had sent letters pleading for help across Europe, to the Pope, to Western kings, but the only reply was silence, indifference, or hollow promises. The West, mired in its own machinations and weary from the Crusades, had abandoned its Eastern brother. Emperor Constantine stood on the high tower, the sea breeze blowing his faded purple cloak. He looked toward the flickering campfires of the Ottomans, stretching like a sea of stars upon the earth. He did not weep, nor did he tremble. In his heart remained only the iron resolve of the last Roman soldier. He knew that if Constantinople were to fall, it would fall with his blood. He would turn the death of this empire into the most tragic epic humanity had ever witnessed. And then, as the first ray of sunlight on April 6th touched the dome of the Hagia Sophia, the first Ottoman war horn sounded, piercing the night, signaling the beginning of 53 fateful days and nights.